for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little black subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that black subscribe button. Really does help our audience grow, really does help our channel grow, really does help and mean more than you could possibly know. So go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Also, thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet 50 on any game, get $250 in free bets. Thank you again to Betfred. Thank you again to you. Now, here's the video that you came here for. All right, everybody, I'm back live from a hotel room in Houston. So good to be back. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, the kids got to get home. I need a haircut. I need a shave. I need a nap. I need everything. But it's great to be in Houston. And I do want to wrap this show. Let me say this. I want to wrap the show on a topic that we've obviously talked about a ton over the last few weeks, but it is a topic that warrants continued discussion because crazy stuff just keeps happening. And that is, of course, the college basketball transfer portal. We've done it all. We've hit on everything. But since we last recorded on Thursday night, oh my goodness, have we gotten a mega piece of news in the transfer portal. So when we last left off, I think I said last week, I think that Caleb Love is probably the most high-profile player to ever enter the transfer portal. Hits that iconic shot to beat Duke, send Coach K into retirement. When that guy leaves, I don't know if there's a bigger player in college basketball that can leave. But what I will say is on Friday, we certainly got a more talented player, and I would argue maybe the most accomplished player to ever enter the transfer portal. When on Friday, Hunter Dickinson, a two-time All-American at Michigan, announced that he will transfer and enter the portal. This was stunning news. This was shocking news. I can say at the Final Four, it was all anybody was talking about at parties and get-togethers and in elevators and in hotel lobbies. Just an absolute stunner. So let's break it down from all angles. Now, let me start by saying this. Like I said, I don't think we've ever seen a player quite like this enter the portal. This is the equivalent of, I'm not saying they're the same kinds of player, but I am saying they can have the same impact. This is like LeBron James hitting free agency. This is like Giannis hitting free agency, Dwayne Wade hitting free agency, because Hunter Dickinson is a guy you can build a national championship team around. Two-time All-American. This year he averaged 19 points, 9 rebounds per game. He's learned how to stretch the floor, shot about 43% from three this year. And so I know that we're going away from this world with true centers and all that, but listen, at the college level, oh, that's a guy you can win around. Because think about UConn's big and physical. You go through some of the other teams that had success throughout the season. Alabama played through the wings, but they were big as heck down low. The point I'm trying to make is this is a guy you can build a national championship team around, and now he is available. Now, in terms of why he left, I think a lot of people have kind of DM'd me privately. Why do you think it was? What do you think happened? Listen, I think it was a weird deal at Michigan. Year one, he comes in. That was the 2021 COVID bubble season. And a lot of Beeline's players were still there. John Beilein, the previous head coach. It was a great culture, great system, older players. I thought Juwan Howard did a very good job that year of, finding players in the portal. So they had a lot of returnees from the Beilein era, Isaiah Livers, Franz Wagner, who's obviously having a ton of success in the NBA. They found Chaundi Brown in the portal. They found the point guard in the portal. I think his name was Mike Smith. And so you had a team that was the Big Ten champ and the number one seed, one of the number one seeds in the NCAA tournament. They ended up losing in the Elite Eight, but that was a great college basketball team. The problem is that since that season, Hunter Dickinson, he's not really an NBA prospect, so I understand why he wants to stay in college basketball. But since that season, it's all kind of gone downhill for Michigan around Hunter Dickinson. Hunter Dickinson has been the rock, the pillar, but everything else around him has been chaos. 2 years ago, Juwan Howard signed, I think it was maybe even the number one recruiting class in the country, but those guys came in, they didn't perform well, and then most of them left after last year. Caleb Houston decided to go pro, didn't have much of an impact as a college player. Musa Diabite decided to go pro, didn't have much impact as a college player. So those were guys that you'd hope to get back for a second or third year. Basically, it was the worst case scenario in the one and done era. You bring in the high profile players, it doesn't click, and then they leave. Like, it's one thing if they're not very good, but they come back for a second, third year, and they at some point contribute. And it's another thing if they're really good and they help you win. But when they're not good, they don't help you win, and they still leave. It was crushing to Michigan last year. They also lost a very good guard named Frankie Collins to the portal. He's now at Arizona State. And then this season, it was kind of the same. It was a trimmed down roster. Michigan really didn't do very much in the portal around Hunter Dickinson, and it was a struggle. Well, fast forward to next year as well. Michigan's maybe their best pro prospect for sure, Jet Howard, Juwan's son. He's already declared that he's going pro. Kobe Buffkin, their point guard, is projected to be a very high draft pick, so he will probably leave. And all of a sudden, I think Hunter Dickinson looked up and said, "Why am I coming back to Michigan? To what? To grind for 20 and 10 every night because I don't have help around me." Now, this is the portal world. There is the opportunity to backfill and all that. But until you see what the roster is going to be around you, I think it's hard for Hunter Dickinson to commit. He had to make a decision, and he decides to leave. And so that's probably why. I just think he kind of looked at the roster and said, am I just going to come back to get my brains beat in every single night, triple team, not enough help around me, or should I go see what else is out there? So now the question becomes, what else is out there? Because I would think that just about everybody in college basketball would be in pursuit of this guy, right? I mean, the names that are most obviously popping up, he is from the DC area. So the first one is Maryland. And for those of you who are college basketball junkies, that's kind of a funny story, and let me explain why. Hunter Dickinson is from Maryland, and he felt like during the recruiting process, they kind of ignored him. And so year one, especially that COVID year when Michigan was rolling, like he made it a priority. He had Maryland circled on the calendar twice, and he went after them hard. So for him to potentially come full circle, go to Maryland, that would be insane if that ended up happening. We'll see if it does. And then two, I think it'd also be wild if he somehow ended up at Georgetown. Now, the Georgetown perspective, by the way, from the Maryland perspective, it's worth noting as well. Remember, he was hated at Maryland when he went as a visiting player. Now imagine if a year from now, still in the Big Ten, he has to go to Michigan to play at Michigan. That would be a wild plot twist right there. But I'll say this, from the college basketball perspective, and I'm a little biased, and maybe it's because I'm at the Final Four and I got UConn fever and Big East fever. How great, what a statement would it be for Georgetown and Ed Cooley to land this guy, right? Because Georgetown, listen, I think we're all of the age that most of us probably don't remember like the greatest days of Georgetown, but I remember Georgetown with Allen Iverson. I remember Georgetown mattering. And listen, it wasn't that long ago when JT3 was the head coach that MCI Center, I think that's what they call it, the downtown DC arena, was packed to the gills. That city was on fire with Georgetown basketball. And so imagine if Ed Cooley in year one could bring in Hunter Dickinson to be the centerpiece of a rebuild. Now, the question becomes, is there going to be any more talent around him at Georgetown than there was at Michigan? But if you bring him in as the centerpiece, I guarantee you can backfill and find some very nice players to play alongside him. If you're Ed Cooley, we'll see if it happens. I don't know. And I would say, finally, the other name that I do hear, I saw Travis Branham, really good college hoops writer. So I'm by no means criticizing Travis. He's great at what he does. He mentioned that Hunter Dickinson had taken an unofficial to Kentucky. I don't see that. I don't. Kentucky has the 7-foot McDonald's All-American Aaron Bradshaw coming in, the 7-footer Ugo Kingsley that was on the bench this year. I don't really see that one happening. But the one that I do think could happen, I think Duke could be in play. Because think about Duke. Duke this week, Tyrese Proctor, starting guard, announced he's coming back. Mark Mitchell, starting wing, announced he's coming back. Top, number 2 recruiting class in the country, headlined by Mackenzie and Bako. Oh, by the way, Jeremy Roach probably coming back this year as well. The 2-time starting point guard, was the starting point guard on the Final Four team a few years ago. The one thing that they're missing right now is a big guy down low, with Derek Lively probably going pro. You add Hunter Dickinson to that team, I'm just telling you, I'm working on the preseason top 25 right now. I'm here to tell you that is probably your number 1 team going into next season if you have Hunter Dickinson, Jeremy Roach, Tyrese Proctor, etc. So we'll see what happens with Hunter Dickinson. I'm so fascinated to see this recruiting process play out. But then also, let me add this. This is a crippling blow for Juwan Howard and Michigan. And what I would say is, being at the Final Four, I can definitively tell you that this is the talk of the Final Four right now, or at least it was on Friday. Now, a lot of stuff happens over the course of a weekend, but I think this might be the death blow for Juwan Howard, because there was so much excitement around that team 3 years ago. He came back. He's of course, former player, all that good stuff, has that great Big Ten title season, number 1 seed. but it has fallen apart the further that they've gotten away from John Beilein and John Beilein's players. And so this is his program. This is his culture. Last year, they go 19-15, sneak into the NCAA tournament. Now, they did make a Sweet 16 to their credit. That was, of course, Tennessee fans, cover your ears. That was the year that Tennessee was playing so well coming into the NCAA tournament. Michigan beats Colorado State in year one and then goes to the NIT. But it doesn't change the fact that they got in as an 11 seed. Barely snuck in last year. This year, they were an NIT team, finished 18-16 overall. But more importantly, for Juwan Howard, this guy was your rock. This guy was your pillar. This guy is everything that you have built around a 3-year player in your program. And if he's bailing ship on top of everything else, that's really, really, really bad. And I don't know how you recover. And I don't know how you put together a team that competes at the highest level in the Big Ten next year. And if it doesn't, we all kind of know what that means. That'll be 3 years in a row that they've underperformed. And I do wonder if his time is starting to run out. I heard from Michigan fans, he should be on the hot seat right now. That was before the Hunter Dickinson news. Woo! Not very good going into next year.